Thanks for downloading Pave the Way Podcast. On this show, your host, Greg Helbeck, interviews the top minds in real estate, business, and personal development to help you crack the code so you can grow your business and, more importantly, grow your life. Get ready for another game-changing episode. If you want to learn how to master your day and become a productivity monster, download Greg's free guide on daily personal productivity for free at www.pavetheday.com. That's Pave the Day, spelled DAY.com. Now it's time for today's episode. Enjoy.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. I'm here with Tag Thompson out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And today we're going to really learn all about Tag and how he is an extremely successful virtual investor. And we're going to learn, what he is doing to have consistent success. So Tag, really thankful for having you on the show today. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, I'm excited, Greg.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one too, because I think you and I have interacted a few times on social media, and I believe I was on you and Lauren Hardy, you have like a Wednesday talk, and I was a guest on there. I don't really know you. I think we knew some of the same people. So this is like the first time I think we've done a one-on-one together. So I'm looking forward to finding out, a little bit about you. So before we get into your business, can you just give the listeners a little bit about your background and how you, kind of got into real estate before we get into the nuts and bolts today?
Yeah. So I'm actually pretty new to real estate. I've been an entrepreneur for, 20 years. Sold my first business 20 years ago, last month, actually.
That's awesome.
I sold, yeah. So I've been in a lot of different industries. I've had restaurants, I've had clothing stores, I've had data centers, and a lot of my time was spent in animal medicine. So I actually owned animal hospitals for a large portion of my career, and exited the animal medicine world in 2017, and then early 2018, my current partner and good friend David Olds and I kind of had the idea of doing wholesaling on a nationwide scope, which at the time nobody was really doing. So we failed a whole bunch over the next 2 to 3 years in trying to just figure out by trial and error how to do that. So my main, again, I'm not a real estate expert. I'm an economist by education, and so I bring some of that understanding to the table, but I'm not a big landlord. I have no really desire to have a bunch of rental properties. So that's just not, it's much easier for me to flip a business than flip a house. So that's where I spend most of my time.
That's interesting, man. I did not know about that. That's why I'm glad we're doing this, because I had no idea about your background at all. And I thought you were in real estate for ever for some reason. I'm going to change this background, by the way. This blur sucks. I'm actually in the middle of renovating a apartment, talking about rental properties. I'm moving into one of my damn rentals and I'm renovating it. So in the interim, I have to stay with my parents, which is embarrassing. So I'm in their old ass basement here, just, with a bunch of junk behind me.
We'll just pretend it's an ironic background.
Yeah, it's an interesting background. It's like the old, trophies and books on the shelf here. So anyway, when did you guys get into real estate? Because I thought you were like a veteran for some reason. Interesting. No. That's a good thing. I'm glad that this is the case here.
So my partner, David Olds, he's been in real estate for a long time, maybe 15 years. So he's been in it for a while. And when I met him, he was mainly doing flips. And we were friends and we were traveling together a good bit. And there was this one night we were up in Asheville, North Carolina, and for some reason, I don't know who booked it, but we booked an Airbnb that was 2 hours outside of the city. It was a nice cabin, but it was really far from the city. So we had this 4-hour round trip drive, and he had told me about wholesaling, but I couldn't really wrap my head around how it was possible to make so much money with so little effort.
Yeah.
Because for a guy like me, I'm used to opening animal hospitals, right? We're talking about regulations out the ass. We're talking about millions of dollars worth of equipment. So for me to make a large amount of money, I've got to move mountains to create this monster. Somebody told me, oh yeah, you can, get a house under contract, sell the contract, and make $5,000. And I was like, what? And, at the time there weren't really, at least well-known wholesaling businesses. Like there were tons of people making lots of money wholesaling, but there weren't really businesses, like places that were systems and employees and hierarchies and management structures and all of that. So when I heard about like how these transactions happen, immediately my brain started just 90 miles an hour. How can I turn wholesale assignments into a business that's scalable, replicable, in the end, hopefully sellable, to where I can actually sell the business to somebody else?
Yes, and I'm happy you brought that up, because that is what I see, and I'm a little guilty of this myself. I'm a lot guilty of this myself. A lot of the businesses, if they're not doing a lot of volume, they're not. That's like, at least on the fix and flip side, because there's more just moving parts, on the fix and flip side. It's hard for a lot of people to sell those businesses, but once you simplify it and systematize it enough, like what you guys are doing, which I'm excited to get into, that's when you have a real actual asset that's producing cash month after month after month. You mentioned you didn't like rental properties, and I can tell you right now, I just started getting involved in them over the last year, and they are not as cool as people make them seem. I think everyone says like, oh, you just get a bunch of rentals and you're going to be set. That's BS, because if you want to get a good deal, like, you got to go off market, and I buy a lot of rentals for myself with bad tenants, and I have there's actually nothing for me to say about that, because I think about that and I already start getting stressed out, because yeah, I'm like sweating. So I've always told people you should focus on flipping houses and wholesaling before you start to get into rentals, because rentals are more of a depreciation, wealth preservation thing. You're not getting rich at $200 a month on a refinance single family house. It ain't happening. Anyway, so with that out of the way,
yeah, I mean, there are people out there that have, I don't know, rental properties are practically impossible to make short-term money on. They're just
100%, dude. That's so true.
And all the work is in the short term. So
yes.
if you think that you're going to get rich in the short term with rental properties, somebody's lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get rental properties, if you can amass 50, 60, 70 of them and hold them for 20 years until all the mortgages are paid off, then you've got an astronomical amount of cash flow.
Yeah.
But for me, as a person who's been able to build businesses that become incredibly lucrative way faster, like the idea for me to sit on an asset for 20 years before it really starts to pay off.
Yeah, right.
It just makes me uncomfortable. Like,
boring.
Yeah. So
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So what is your business? Let's start with this. What does your business today look like on the wholesaling side on a national level? And then what the hell's going on in here?
Is there a bat in there?
I don't know. Maybe there's raccoons in my rentals talking about that. I had the pest control there the other day, so that's been a nightmare. But anyway, so what does your business look like on a 30,000 foot view today as we're having this conversation?
Yeah. So we're based in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Every wholesaling business kind of has two sides. We have our seller side, which is True Offer, and then we have our buyer side, which is Nationwide Property Liquidators. So we operate in 38 different states. And
wow.
The ones that are missing are really the non-disclosure states. Not that you can't wholesale a non-disclosure state, it just slows us down. So, so we really try to focus on the areas that we can push through our system with little friction. And you throw a non-disclosure state in there. Well, now we have to get a different type of software. Now we have to make more phone calls than we normally would. Well, there's plenty of other states that you can wholesale in that you don't deal with that stuff. So yeah, we wholesale in 38 different states. And we've got a team of acquisition managers, lead gen people. Everybody's in-house. I don't have any VAs.
That's smart
for us. So, once every 6 months, I'll talk to somebody and they're like, yeah, man, I got 6 or 7 VAs. Things are going well. But my strongest skill set is leadership. And within that, I have to be near people. I can't have a Zoom call once every week, or I've got to be with you. We've got inspiration is an important part of leadership. It's hard to do that when they're not with me. So
totally.
And we pay very well here, and I would put the production, compare it dollar for dollar. I'd put my people's production against any VA, anytime, period, without a doubt.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree with that. I had VAs for a long time. And this year, actually, in 2021, I said, yeah, I'm hiring a real assistant, like legit assistant. And I'm not going to be cheap. I'm not going to go look in Costa Rica. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to hire someone in the US. They can be virtual because I do a lot of virtual stuff. And man, that has been probably one of the best business decisions I've made all year long. Just paying up for talent and not getting cheap, because there's a price for everything, right? You get what you pay for at the end of the day.
Just like a rental property.
Oh, man, I am getting just thinking about that. We're filing we're doing the eviction. The attorney, dude, rentals are a nightmare, man. I mean, at least I buy these cheap houses that are it's a very stressful because with New York, basically, a little side note, it's very difficult to do business in New York. It's kind of like California, which is the two areas I happen to decide to do business in, but it's very hard to get a tenant out. So you really don't have a lot of leverage as a landlord. So that's why I'm like all pissed about it. Like if this was Texas, they'd be out in 2 weeks. Right. But yeah, New York, California, good luck with that. So anyway, so you said you're wholesaling in 38 states. So you said a non-disclosure state, just so the listeners, maybe they're not aware of that. I know what that means, and I'm sure some listeners know what that means. What the heck is a non-disclosure state if someone's never heard of that?
Yeah, so all of the data that every real estate investor pulls to market, right? So we pull a list of data to market, right? So we pull these lists. Well, all that information is public record. That's whatever software or company you use basically collects that data, aggregates it to where it's like consumable for you as a real estate investor so that you can do your thing. So it's all public data, right? So, but some areas in the country, some are full states, like the state of Mississippi. They're very closed book about real estate transactions. So they don't disclose, they're non-disclosure. So when a property sells in Wetumpka, Mississippi county, I don't know if that's a county, we're going to say it is though. When somebody does a real estate transaction there, especially one that's not listed in the MLS, there's no way to find out information about that transaction. Like it's completely, they don't report it to anybody. Like you can file a FOIL or whatever to get some information, but they don't just publicly list that information. So those states, and because as a real estate investor, the most valuable asset I have is like real comps, like real properties to compare that with. If I get a property in Wetumpka, Mississippi, I don't know what properties around there are selling for. I just don't know. If you have MLS access, you can see maybe what some things were listed for, but you don't know. So you're making too many assumptions. So non-disclosure states are where they simply don't disclose real estate transactions publicly.
Isn't Texas a non-disclosure state?
Texas is in some ways. It's not as bad as Mississippi. Mississippi is like
the worst.
Like nothing. Like you pull up below and you'll see a million yellow dots and no numbers. Like
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's like the worst
Texas,
thing to see.
And anything that's in the MLS that gets reported, right? So if somebody lists a property and sells it through the multiple listing service, you will be able to see that. Private transactions aren't. But they do have some workarounds in Texas. There's a software called Propelio that actually backbones into the Texas MLS, so you can get access to it. But again, that would just slow me down. Like it's another software I have to teach my people. That's another thing. So we just avoid Texas altogether.
Yeah, no, that's smart. I mean, you guys know what you're good at, and it's interesting. I mentioned Texas. I probably did 40 deals down in Texas a couple of years ago, and I remember this is before cold calling and texting were like a thing. There's a blue ocean down there. And I was like, but I remember like when we were doing deals and this is all virtual, I was like, man, it's hard to get these comps. Like I didn't know what the hell was going on. I'm like, what's going on? But then eventually I figured out how to do it, but it was strange because and then someone was like, dude, it's a non-disclosure state. And I'm like, really? I didn't know what that even means. So now I know what that means. Anyway.
It's really important if you go to a nationwide marketing channel, you have to understand every state's not different. In fact, even inside of some states, like the state of Indiana, there are some counties that are non-disclosure, but some aren't. So
interesting.
So yeah, like you have to understand that about the markets you're going into.
No, that makes a ton of sense. Now, you're nationwide, so I have some questions on the acquisition. And I want to start with the disposition questions because I feel like that is something where people, when they try to go virtual, they have a tough time selling deals just because they don't know what they're doing. And I think this is a great podcast they should listen to because we're going to walk them through how to do that. are you doing, before I ask that, are you guys doing deals in the higher end areas like a New Jersey, a California, an Oregon, a Washington State? Or are you avoiding those areas because they're expensive?
No, in fact,
Okay.
those areas end up being really lucrative. The longer
Yes.
you're in the wholesaling business, you realize that if you want a if you want a bigger assignment fee, you have to get higher end properties.
Yes.
I mean,
it's
there
very
is a
true.
direct correlation between
Oh yeah.
the price of the house and the assignment fee.
Oh
Because
yeah.
if you're slinging $40,000 houses, it's hard to make a $20,000 assignment
No,
fee.
that's impossible. I mean,
So
it's you've got to steal the house.
yeah, so when you're dealing with $600,000 houses, finding a $20,000 gap in there is actually pretty easy. So
Yeah.
now it's harder in those markets because there's a lot of competition. You have to go churn through a lot more leads. But no, those are much easier. It's much more worth it because yeah, I mean, we locked one up today in Spokane, and it'll be a $60,000 deal. Like,
That's amazing.
but we probably had to like comb through a million to get to that one. But
Yeah.
one, it's good because they're much higher margins.
Yeah, no, that makes, and that's been my business model for the last 3 years is like, I go for the big deals. Even though it's a little scary when they fall apart, because you're like, oh no, I just worked so hard on this thing. It's going to make 80 grand. But yeah, no, for sure. It's tough to make 20,000 assignment fees when the houses are 40 grand. It's
Yeah.
a 50% profit on the asset, which would be insane. So I want to start with the disposition side, because that's something that a lot of people have trouble with on the virtual model. When you guys get a property in a random city, like what is your disposition, like high level? Obviously, it's only an hour long show. What's your process for selling properties, not only to a buyer, but for top dollar? Because I know a lot of wholesalers who are cash buyer employees and they like sell their deals when they could be making triple on them if they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, we're definitely like that. And we can't be, because that'll probably be the first deal we've done in Spokane.
Exactly.
I have literally right now I have 0 buyers in my database. So as soon as the contract is signed with the seller, we have a kind of an admin team that sits between acquisitions and dispositions. And so they immediately start building our buyers list. So the same process that we go through to find motivated sellers, we go through to find motivated buyers. So we download the data, we skip trace it, and we push it through our system. We SMS, we RVM. We don't RVM sellers, but we do RVM buyers. We also have another software we use called Investor Lift.
I was just going to say that. Do you use that software? Because people have been drooling over it. So you know what it's going down. That thing is crazy.
Yeah,
it's so powerful.
It's good. The thing that's really good about it is the ability to have it's called cartel mode, which basically allows me to hook in with other people that are also in the cartel. I hate the language, by the way, but like other people that are in the group. And if you've got buyers in Spokane that are already vetted, like now I have access to them. And if you get a deal in an area that we already have buyers, then you get access to ours. So basically just, basically list sharing like all the time. So the more people are involved in it, the more like there's like 2 million buyers in there right now, vetted buyers. So the bigger it gets, the more access we have. So we can push our properties out that way, to Investor Lift. And then, Facebook, we put it on Facebook groups, we do everything. So this admin team, literally the second we get one in a new market, they're joining every Facebook garage sale, everything they can, they're joining it so that, by the time we get pictures, they can throw that property on there and see if we can get some bites on it. So,
totally. It's a great strategy. You guys utilize real estate agents at all to find buyers? I mean, I've found a lot of success doing that, and at least in my local market where like I'm well known here, and in California too.
Yeah. In the higher end markets, it works very well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It works very well. The places where there's a lot of competition, like you get realtors that are really excited about your deals.
Yes.
We've had just a string of like mishaps with that though. Like you get a bad realtor, they don't explain the process very well. So, so we try to avoid that. Usually what we do is we push it out to everybody we know. And if we don't get much traction on it, then we'll list it.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I could see that not being as productive in a low end area like sub 200,000, because the commission on a property that's $60,000 is peanuts.
Yeah,
right? It's peanuts. Yeah, doing one right now in San Diego, and like I mean, the realtor is going to make $7,000, which is generous. I could have paid him less, but he brought the buyer. But like, you can share a lot. I mean, he's making 7. I think we're making 40, but like $7,000 is still worth the guy's time. Like, he made 3 phone calls and, made a conference call, for $7,000. I'm like, all right, dude, cool. So yeah, his interests are way more aligned. So that's interesting, man. I think that's something that I have seen, this whole nationwide market thing. I mean, like you said, I bet you 2 or 3 years ago, not many people were doing this. Now, there's a few other people, I'm sure we both know them, that they're doing this and they're having a lot of success. And I see it getting more traction, honestly, as the months go on. So my question for you now on the seller side, now this is where I'm really just interested to see how you guys are working your process, because I know a guy named Chris Chico, and I'm sure you know Chris Chico too, or know of him at least. He's been talking about this, and he's been doing nationwide deals. His strategy is because if you're doing deals all over the country, to pull 3,000-4,000 or 3-4 million people, that's a lot of people to call or mail. So he's doing a lot of digital ads, and then the digital ads are running all over the place, and then the leads come in, and then once he gets leads, he figures out then where to sell them. So basically, what are you guys doing to get seller leads in a cost-effective way, so you don't have to call 10 million people, because that would be a lot of calls.
Well, we call 10 million people. We don't do much cold calling.
Okay.
Our main source of leads right now is through SMS. So
okay.
So we do so much of it now. We've kind of built all of our own softwares that handle all that for us. So it's not automated. It's still regulated and within regulations, but yeah, so we SMS about, I'll be honest with you, I think about 25,000 a day is what we send out. So yeah, I mean, we again, and we have our system is very regimented. When we go into a market, we pick vacants first. If we get a bite on a vacant property, then we immediately pull an absentee owner list. And usually we'll get a couple bites on that, and then we'll pull a couple of other lists after that. So, because if you have one deal in the market, it's good to have 2, because there's always, that way when you're trying to sell one, hey, if you don't like that one, how about this deal? So you've got something to pivot to. But yeah, so we SMS. I have a team here that they do that all day long. We have inbound calling too. So everybody that calls back, it actually goes to one of our girls here, and they answer the phone and try to get the conversation going that way. So it kind of it's not a cold call, but it's basically an inbound cold call.
It's an inbound call from a text. Yeah. No, that's smart.
Yeah. So they kind of pick up that little, almost like loose change, like stuff that most people just let die. Like, we kind of pick that up. We probably get a deal a month from it, which is totally worth the hassle.
Totally.
And then we so they process the leads, or they process all those that information, and when it turns into a lead for us, that just means they raised their hand and said they're interested in hearing an offer. So they should already be in kind of one of those distressed categories. So as soon as they raise their hand and say, I'm interested, that's all we want to do to qualify. So as soon as that happens, they get on the phone with an acquisition manager. And then they walk them through, hey, this is what it's like to work with an investor. Tell me a little about your situation. Like, does that sound like it works for you? And they take them through that process, ask them kind of what they're looking to get for the property. If it doesn't fit within where our acquisition managers think it will work, just kind of like a bird's eye view of that neighborhood, then we put it on a follow-up. If they do think they're motivated and are willing to sell at a discount, they kind of put their thoughts in on paper. And I have an acquisition director who, it goes to her. She kind of deep dives really quick in the neighborhood, pulls all the comps, looks a little closer into it, and comes up with a number. And that goes back to our acquisition manager. And if they go for it, we lock the contract up. And then it goes over to our transaction coordinator. Yeah,
the disposition team. I can tell you're very systems oriented just by having this conversation. Like most people, that's just like running around like a chicken with their head cut off when they get a property, but you have a very streamlined, methodical way of doing it from Tennessee all over the country. Now, I'm assuming you're locking 95% of these deals up via DocuSign or whatever, HelloSign. What happens when you get an old time seller and they're like, hey, I want you to meet with me at the house, because how do I know you can buy my property if you've never seen it? That doesn't happen that often anymore, but it still happens to me a little bit. So what do you guys do when you're when you have that conversation? Like, and also, do you tell them you are not living in the area, or do you just not bring that up? And then
this is one of the things I talk about a lot. Like, because wholesaling is hard for sellers to understand.
Yes.
Your acquisition managers will, or even if you're doing it yourself, like you feel a little timidity about trying to explain how this is all going to work, right? So,
so true,
we tend to be a little cagey and like, don't worry about that. Like, no, we're very honest. Like, no, we can't come out and see it. Like, I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Like, we do this every day. It's a process that we're very used to. Here's what's going to happen. Once we sign this contract, we're gonna send somebody out there local that's actually going to take pictures of the property and do kind of a quick inspection, just to make sure that kind of what you and I agree is the condition of the property is actually the case.
Makes sense.
So basically, you just pivot away from that and tell them what's actually going to happen. And usually, that's where the objection lies: is I don't understand your process. How can you buy my house if you're in Chattanooga and I'm in Spokane? So that's their objection. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. So usually if you just pivot and explain to them that's actually going to work, they have no problem.
Totally. It's all about those expectations too. Like, especially with showings, I've learned, like, I had a property that I think it looked like a Congo line going in this house. It was out in California in the ghetto too, at night. So that wasn't helpful either. But I told the tenant, I'm like, hey dude, like, it's going to be nuts here for like an hour. Your family's got to leave. I got to get my guys in here, and it's all good. And we did that. He wasn't pissed. He wasn't ecstatic. And then we did the same thing last week. I never saw the house, but it was, I told the seller, I'm like, dude, pandemonium's going to go down in your house for an hour. After that, we're good. And he's like, all right, that's cool. And literally there was 15 people at this guy's house, and there was like, it was a disaster in there. And, he wasn't pissed. He wasn't calling me saying, oh, what's going on? But every time someone doesn't set those expectations and the seller is not expecting there to be people there, it always gets nasty. And that's when deals die. I'm sure you guys have, realized that as well sometimes.
If you know you're going into a hard situation, always pitch higher on how hard it's going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Like, always this is going to suck. Like, I'm going to go and tell you, like, you're going to hate this.
Yes.
And then they're going to come back and be like, oh, all right, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, so you're setting the expectation high for disappointment, but you're not meeting that expectation, so they feel fine about it.
That's so true, man.
Chris Voss tactic. He talks about that with, like, if he ever wants to get a late checkout, he always says, God, I feel so bad that I have to even ask you this. I'm so embarrassed. Like, so he'll go above, like, oh my God, this is going to be so terrible. And then he'll be like, is it okay if I get a late checkout? They're always like, oh, of course, that's no problem. Like,
yeah, because they're thinking there's a dead body in the hotel. And then he's like thinking, And then
that's relieved. Like, they're relieved that it's just a late checkout rather than like seeing the inconvenience of it.
Yes, that's so true. What does he call that? I think he called Bending Your Reality or whatever. Like, I forget that. I love that book, too. That's a helpful book. So I got to re-listen to that thing. I've probably listened to that thing like 15 times. I haven't listened to it in probably like a year, and I got to get back on my horse, because every time I listen to that deal, I'm just like, I want to go out there and just crush it. So, man, that's awesome. So you guys, I'm super impressed. We got your operation. So I want to ask you a couple not like personal questions, but like, you didn't come into this business like a new, hungry real estate entrepreneur. They've never had a business before. Like, they're just learning how to be an entrepreneur. So what was the number one thing that you saw with real estate that you knew that you could, that really attracted you to want to get involved, because you come from a more sophisticated background and you were able to see real estate more on the business side, not on the real estate side? Because I think a lot of people, they think of real estate is just the tool, right? Like, we could be flipping insurance policies, we could be flipping headphones here, right? But you looked at real estate from a business on day one, versus 95% of people look at real estate and they are the technicians, and they don't look at it like a business. It takes them years and years and years and years. So, like, what about real estate got you like intrigued? Besides the money, obviously, we know the spreads are big in this business too.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I wish more people would ask me that.
Thank you.
So, what got me really excited about it was my understanding of like scale. Like, if I have a superpower, it's understanding how things can scale. And the first thing that I understood, which I see so many wholesalers failing at, is understanding that to scale any business, you have to appropriately leverage human capital. Any business, I don't care what the business is. If you can't lead people, you can't scale, because there's only 24 hours in a day. You only have a certain skill set. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You can't leverage that money at the same way that you can leverage people. So my understanding of, as soon as I saw the revenue capacity inside wholesaling, and granted at the time, I mean, our average assignment fee now is $17,000, I think.
It's amazing.
At the time, it was like 4. Like, so my understanding has changed, but even at $4,000, it blew my mind. Like, okay, so immediately I'm like, okay, we get people in lead gen, we get people in acquisitions, we start hiring disposition people, we get an admin. Like, immediately, as soon as I started seeing how the people involved could actually do the work. And my role is just to lead. Is just to lead them and continually put our culture inside them so that they understand and have a long career at our company. So that's the potential I saw immediately in it. Was not like, oh man, I can do 100 deals. For me, it's, oh, I can have 30 people on my staff.
Yeah.
And those 30 people can do 100 times more than I can do on my own.
100%.
So yeah. And so many people can't understand the power of leveraging human capital. Like, and it drives me crazy. So I can call my bank right now, right? I can be like, hey, Bank of America, it's Tag. Go take the phone in to the safe, and I want to talk to my money. And so they take the phone to the safe, and I'm like, hey, money, man, like, I really appreciate how hard you're working for me. Like, it really, like, it means a lot to me that you would like choose to like be on my team and be my money. Like, it really means a lot to me. I really appreciate you. Like, I want to invest in you too. Like, I want you to tell me like what your goals are, money, and how can I help you accomplish your goals? I can do that with my money. And first of all, everyone's going to think I'm a crazy person. But second of all, it's going to have absolutely no effect on my money. Like zero. It won't affect it. However, if I go out here and talk to my team that way, they're going to work harder for me. They're going to work longer for me. They're going to stay with me longer. They're going to sacrifice their own, they're going to jump in front of a bus for you because you care about them. Money doesn't care if you care about it. Like, it's inanimate. If I'm a farmer, I can't go out into the field and throw my arm around a tractor and be like, man, I really appreciate how hard you worked today. Like, I know it was a hot day out here and you worked really hard. I really appreciate what you've done for me. Tractor doesn't give a shit. But you do that to a person, and the next day they're going to be up early. They're going to be there with you. They're going to work harder. And you literally had to put no money into it.
That's so true.
All you had to do was care about them. That's it. Like, there is no other type of asset that you can leverage like you can leverage human capital. You can't do it because it's free. This is what drives me crazy about people who don't invest in their people. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything to be a good boss. It doesn't cost you anything. Like, and yet the production value you get from it is obscene. It's crazy, man. Like, man,
that's such a good answer, man. It's almost like, well, I heard this before. You work for them. They don't work for you, right? If you can help them hit their freaking goals, you'll inevitably hit your goals, but then they're going to love you even more because you help them hit their goals. You know, let's just say, for example, and I love this topic, like you bring someone in, they start out as like a cold caller. They're making, I don't know, $25,000, $30,000 a year, whatever. If you can show them a direct path to hitting 6 figures, which is obviously possible in this business, you can literally change their life. A, they'll make way more income. B, they'll grow as a person. And C, it'll ultimately help you and them get to the next level, right? But that's a thing. And I'll tell you what, Tag, this is where I've made this mistake. A lot of other people have made this mistake. I think when you I got into this business ass backwards. I was 20 years old. I didn't know what the hell I was still in college. So I had to learn how to make money before I had to learn how to lead. So now that's a skill that I've been working on over the last year or so. And I wish I started working on that leadership skill earlier because I was so focused on the technician skills of lead gen, making offers, negotiating sales. But at the end of the day, I found in this business, obviously you got to do those things. But like you said, if you have 30 people doing, 60% of the effort, that's going to collectively kick someone's ass who's doing 100% and they're way better than them because there's just more people doing more volume. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting.
And it's really interesting when you think about how So we have this tendency to, especially when I see it a lot in people who maybe, like, I've been wholesaling deals and maybe I did 10 deals last year and maybe I made 60K, but I can't get past that,
there's that barrier. Yeah.
Get past that line of like, I want to quit my job, but I just can't quite get there. Or like, or I want to, like, maybe you did quit your job and maybe you're working on like a husband and wife team and you're like, man, we really want to hit 200K. But you just keep getting stopped right there. That line always represents, every single time, man, I'm telling you, every single time represents your inability to get people on board with your mission. Every single time. Like,
So true.
bring somebody in and have them take the things away from you so that you can focus on higher revenue producing activities every single time. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of people in that position, and 100% of the time, that's the problem. Man, I'm trying, usually it's this. Man, I've tried to hire VAs to do cold calls and it just doesn't work. Yeah, because they suck and they don't believe in you. Like,
yes.
They suck and they don't believe in you. Okay, so there's your problem. Like, you fail to leverage human capital. Like, I've got people out here that because I care about them personally, like, I can tell you what they're into. Like, I can tell you what their kids' names are, when their kids' birthdays are. Like, I'm going to their kids' birthday parties. Like, when they have a hard time in life, like, I'm the guy they call. Like, and because of that, they will not leave me. They work harder, they produce more, they listen to me when I give them feedback. When I tell them, hey, do this instead of that, they do it without question, without pushing back. Like, and all of that, how much did it cost me to do that? $0.
Totally.
I could have paid a high price consultant to come in here. I could pay them more, but I don't have to, because
so true, man.
Because they're on board with the mission.
So true. That's so true. And it's such a powerful skill. And that's, you mentioned something in that was brilliant, by the way. Doing higher level revenue generating activities. So what is your opinion on, as a leader, right? Like, we're talking about, and we have a lot of advanced people listening to the show as well. As a leader, if we had to boil down to, let's just make it simple for this podcast's sake, 3 high producing revenue generating activities as a leader, what would you say 3 of those things could be? Because maybe there's more, so I'll have you pick your favorite ones.
So, I mean, I've kind of already talked about what should be the summation of all of these, which is, my job isn't to develop my business. My job is to develop my people.
Dude, that's gold.
I had a video about this morning, like, talking about so many people focus on every team member you have is like a little tree, right? And so much on the fruit and not on the roots. Like, my job is to focus on the roots. Like, so that's funny. Like, right before we started, my acquisition director walked in. We had a weird property, and she was like, hey, can you look at this property? It's kind of weird. Like, I don't understand the comps very well. I was like, well, what did you think about it? She's like, well, I think we can probably do like 120, 125. I was like, okay, I'll take a look at it. She walked out of the room. I didn't even pull the property up. I don't even know what it is. I was just like, hey, I think you're good on that. Like, she's better at me then. Like, she's better at me at that than me at that. So I don't want to have a hand in it. Like, she literally all day long, all she does is comp properties. I'd never do that anymore. So she's the expert. I let her do that. So I don't need to develop her skill in that, because she's bad. I would slow her down.
Yes.
Like, I might teach her something that's bad. Like,
yes. So
my job is to develop her as a person, make sure that she has the right resources, make sure that this job and her role falls in line with the river of her life. It's a great book about this. Like, as a leader, the more you try to take people away from, call it fate, call it destiny, whatever, but the more you try to bend people away from their personal destiny to make it conform with your business, the worse it'll get. So my job is to constantly say, hey, like, what's your long-term goal? Like, does this job fit with your long-term goal? And honestly, even helping them find it. So that's first, is develop them as a person, not even your business. Like, as a person, help them, develop them as a person. How can we help them be more organized in their life as a whole? So it's a very holistic approach to it, because somebody can't be disorganized in their life and organized in your business.
Yes, that's so true. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Absolutely. So we have to help them. We have to develop them holistically. This is what I'm talking about with the roots. Like, I'm not worried about the fruit yet. The fruit will come if the roots are good. So So I spend all my time, first of all, developing them as people. The second thing is really having them be my feedback for understanding, like specific would be like, what are sellers telling you recently? Like they're kind of my ear to the stuff that I'm not doing. So I ask questions all the time. Like, okay, we're calling Spokane. Like when you're talking to sellers in Spokane, what are you hearing? Like, what are they saying? You know, and they might say things like, a lot of people are really frustrated because I'm the 15th person that's texted them today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so they're giving me feedback that I can't get through data, you know? So that's the second thing, is to do that. The third thing is to focus every single day on realizing your job is to imprint your mission on these people. Like you need to inspire them to get on board with your mission. And if you don't have a personal mission, you got to start there. I mean, mine, ask anybody in my company and they'll say, hey, what's Tag's personal mission? Any single person, every single one will say Tag's personal mission is to be the best employer in Chattanooga.
I love that. And you're so clear and vivid about that too.
Number one, like I want to be the best employer in Chattanooga. And that's a mission that they can get on board with, right? Because that affects them directly, you know?
Yes.
So they want me to be the best employer in Chattanooga.
Yeah, because it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah. So your mission has to be like that. You know, if my mission were like, man, I want to make $1 million this year, they don't give a shit. Like,
that has nothing to do with them. Yeah.
So your personal mission has to be something. It has to be something you believe in. You can't just steal mine. Like it's got to be something that you really do believe in, that they can get on board with. And every single day you spend a lot of time like imprinting that mission on them, reminding them that's what we're here about. That's what we're about. That's what we're about. That's what we're about. So those for a leader are the most important things you can do in a company. Because those, again, I'm all about the roots, not about the fruit. I'm not worried when I say revenue producing, that's what I mean. Like,
that is revenue producing, because that is like you're simplifying it down to the core, which is if you help them grow in their life, they're going to grow in their job. And if they're going to grow in their job, they're going to do the things that matter. And if they do the things that matter, the results will be there. So you're looking at it from a higher level perspective, not just like, hey, when you cold call, talk to them in Spanish. You know, I'm making a joke. It's like, it's not a tactic. It's a principle. You're principle based, not tactic based.
Yeah.
I can tell that.
Or, hey, you're making 50 cold calls a day. I need you to make 65.
Yeah.
Like, that's not my job. Like, I have a manager that does that stuff for me, because that's not a revenue producing activity. Like, so anyways, like, that's true. That's
awesome, dude. That's awesome. Well, listen, I could talk about this all day. I want to definitely respect your time. So as we start to wind the show down, I try to keep them, 50-ish minutes, 45 minutes. Man, this has just been a great conversation. I think a lot of our listeners are going to be like, wow, I got to listen to that one again. So if people want to, get in touch with you, like what's the best social profile for them to check out? And we'll make sure Anna, my assistant, who's a great person on my team, she's listening. We'll have her put that in the show notes. So what's the best social handle to have people find you on?
Yeah, I'm really active on Facebook, but that's a terrible way to
Facebook, what social media.
That's a terrible way to get in touch with me, because it's just too crowded. I get way too many messages and hardly ever answer it. But if you reach out to me on Instagram, I'm the wrong tag is my handle. So you can reach out to me there. It's the best way. The
wrong tag. That's awesome. And then also I wanted to say, what is a website here that they can, if they want to, learn how to, become a better leader, if they want to just kind of get into your world, what is the best website for them to check out if they want just more interested in about what you might have to offer?
Yeah, if you want to go to realfounders.io, that's kind of like my website, talks a little about me, kind of introduces you to my philosophy of leadership and that whole thing. So realfounders.io.
Awesome. I will make sure that is in the show notes as well. I have a quick question for you about this IO thing. I see so many people now. I mean, what is it, 2021 now? It's halfway through the year. Is this IO a new trend that I got to get on here? Because I see all these IO. What is that? Like, is there?
I don't know. It's a lot of it's kind of a tech thing, because IO is a symbol for on off in some tech stuff. But there's so many people out there that are just buying domains and sitting on them. Like .com, getting a .com is almost impossible. So
interesting.
So yeah, a lot of people are pivoting to IO.
Interesting. That's interesting. See you later. Yeah, that is interesting. I bought a domain last night. I think bookacallwithgreg.com, and it was still there. But anyway, maybe I'll go greghelbeck.io and we'll see how that goes. So listen, Tag, it was an honor having you on the show, man. You provided a massive amount of value for me and for my listeners, and I'm sure some people will be reaching out to you soon, man. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Pave the Way Podcast. We hope you got value from today's episode. Make sure you download Greg's free guide on daily personal productivity for free at www.pavetheday.com. That's Pave the Day, spelled DAY.com. If you have any questions or want to reach out, head over to www.pavethewaypodcast.com. We'll see you on the next episode.